Today, when you think about strong commanders, you might imagine Urza, Yuriko, maybe Korvold, legendary creatures that might be a little too strong for your average commander pod. These are the boogeymen of the format. Oh, it's not that Urza deck. And if we look at the most popular commanders right now, we'll see these are up there, and many other popular commanders are pretty powerful. But most of them are also really new cards, or at least relatively new, printed in the last 5-6 years. And this got me thinking, what happened to the old boogeymen of the format? So I wanted to take a look at those commanders, look at some new tech for them, and evaluate if they're still just as strong. And if you want to pick up any of these commanders, check out Cool Stuff Inc. If you use code TTM, you can get 5% off, and it supports the channel. Thanks to Cool Stuff Inc. for sponsoring the video. I think it's not surprising that a lot of commanders in the era of Commander are very powerful. I mean, these new commanders were literally designed to be strong. Just as a little survey, I know it's not very scientific, I asked my patrons to name the first strong commander that comes to mind, and I got a lot of answers which were printed somewhat recently. Shorakai, Voja, Tivit, Winota, Itali Primal Conqueror. And all of these are correct. These are strong commanders, I'm not denying that. But only a few patrons actually talked about old classics. One of them was Brago King Eternal. For years, he was the king of Azorius, but has since been dethroned. I think Brago is not any weaker than he once was, though. Actually, I think this commander has only gotten stronger. As new Enter the Battlefield effects are printed, that's just a new toy for Brago. As recently as Aether Drift, you can add the new Transit Mage to your deck, and then search up various artifacts. And if you grab, I don't know, the One Ring, you can use Brago to blink and reset the counters, which seems pretty good, letting you draw non-stop for minimal life loss. Brago also has combos with cards like Stronic Resonator as a strong combo finish. And one of the most powerful things you can do with Brago is play stacks. Cards like Static Orb are very powerful. Only letting you untap 2 permanents is very difficult to get around. And Brago allowing you to untap all of your mana rocks and all of your creatures is really strong under a Static Orb. And other stacks pieces like Tangled Wire can be tremendously difficult to deal with when you're underneath a Kismet. Brago really holds up as a scary, powerful commander after all these years because they just keep making new cards that do stuff when they enter play, and that just is a win for Brago. But I think you don't have to build him as the scary boogeyman either. You can build a casual Blink deck with whatever sub-themes you want, and Brago still works for that. But you probably already know who Brago is. The commander is still relatively popular. Scion of the Ur-Dragon, though, is someone you probably haven't seen in the command zone in a hot minute. Now this was the classic, watch out if they attack you, you lose commander. If you don't know the Wombo combo, what you can do is attack and then activate Scion twice. With the first trigger, you get Molten Steel Dragon, which lets you pay life to pump up its power. With the second activation, you turn your commander into Skithiryx, who has Infect, who also could have been on this list, but then the Scion will retain the +X+O from the Molten Steel, and you just slam in for 10 Infect, instantly deleting that person from the game. Some of the earliest competitive commander decks had Scion at the helm, being a 5-color commander, giving you access to all the best cards, and then you would play Hermit Druid to mill your entire deck, and you could do various combos. Necrotic Ooze was one, Laboratory Maniac is another, and then you had the Scion delete a player combo as a backup, which was also very threatening. These days, Scion of the Ur-Dragon is not CDH viable, not even really close. The backup Alpha Strike game plan is not good enough for CDH these days. There are other 5-color commanders that just offer more utility or explosiveness or powerful combos, but I'm liking Scion more and more every day as a casual EDH commander. For sure, you can still build this as a powerful deck, and that Molten Steel combo is still very scary. But every single time Wizards prints a new dragon that has a unique effect, it becomes a new tool in your dragon toolbox. And I actually like Scion a lot more than the Ur-Dragon. The Ur-Dragon is this massive threat in the command zone that everybody is aware of and everybody's scared of and everybody focuses on. But Scion isn't that. It's instead a utility multi-tool. You can play your commander, and if you need X effect, you find the dragon that does that. And then you can play some reanimation things to grab that dragon and keep using the effect multiple times if that's what you need. Also, the new Marvin has been an excellent addition for this deck, letting him become a 2-mana pseudo copy of your commander. I think this is very similar to Brago. As new dragons get printed, Scion only gets better, and I think this is no longer the scary CDH boogeyman hermit druid deck that everybody was scared of, and is just a cool, fun card that you can play in the command zone. Prossh, Sky Raider of Care, is one of the first cards to scale with the commander tax, and I think that makes sense. This is from one of the earlier precons and was made for the format. The more mana you spend, including your commander tax, makes more kobolds, which is pretty interesting. It also lets the commander go infinite with Food Chain, and after you play some Impact Tremors type effect, you can win the game with this. This is another one of the earlier CDH commanders, although these days Prossh has been replaced with Korvold, who just does the whole Jund sacrifice thing better because card draw is king. Though I think Prossh is still pretty good. It's a free sacrifice outlet in the command zone that comes with fodder stapled to him, and I think that is still fundamentally strong when paired with any payoff for just killing dudes. Think about it, just Prossh and Morbid Opportunist is a lot of card draw, and that's just your commander and one other card. Prossh has for sure been power crept, but I think if you want to play Jund Aristocrats and don't want to take the heat for Korvold, I think Prossh is actually a good option. I ironically think the power creep has kind of benefited this commander, because if I'm looking at Korvold and Prossh, I'm more likely to remove Korvold because it's just scarier by itself. Yet Prossh still has burst damage when you can give it haste, and can be a threatening late game finisher. So if you're playing Korvold casually and you feel like your commander gets blown up too much, maybe downgrading to Prossh could help out. Lord of Extinction is a very fun card in EDH. It gets really big really fast, and it is very funny to have a very big creature. If you've played Commander for a while, I think you know who this pairs with. Jarad, Golgari Lich Lord. The self-mill into reanimate the Lord and flinging it at everybody is still pretty powerful. I actually think Jarad can deal real damage and put in work, although it's just not as strong as he once was. Ultimately, there are faster ways to win games in Golgari, but I think this commander still has a lot of different avenues to build. One, he's a surprisingly good Voltron commander. He gets big and avoids the commander tax. Second, he's also really great in Aristocrats. It's not a free sack outlet, but it is a sack outlet in the command zone. And third, it's excellent for Reanimator. If you reanimate something big, you can then sacrifice the big thing to avoid exile-based removal to set up the reanimation for later. Jarad has fallen a lot in popularity over the years, but I still think is worth playing. And if you've never seen this commander before, that life loss can really stack up. It's way faster at closing games than you might realize. Another commander who's fallen in popularity a lot is Jeleva, Nephalia's Scourge. She also scales with commander tax like Prossh, and can be very dangerous when built around. This is another commander that kind of gets better as Wizards just prints better cards. Since she lets you cheat mana cost, if they print a new 8 mana powerful card, it just goes in the deck. And as more haste enablers get printed, she also gets better. The game plan is really simple. You cast the commander, ideally with haste, and then you cast big scary spells. And I love the randomness here. You can control it somewhat by filling your deck with the right type of cards, but sometimes you hit a big spell off of an opponent and the dynamic of the game is suddenly shifted because you're doing something outside of your commander's color identity, and it can lead to big changes in the game, which is very fun. I don't really have too much to say about her other than she once was a kinda scary commander, and I guess other people are just more interested in new Grixis commanders. But this is another commander that I honestly think still holds up in terms of fun. It's a pretty crazy card, and it's not infinitely scaling in the same way that some other commanders are, because she needs to enter the battlefield to get those cards. If you whiff once, the commander still does nothing, and that variance and inconsistency leads to maybe some bad games, but if you're into that sort of thing, then Jeleva might be right up your alley. Last commander I want to talk about is Narset Enlightened Master, which is one of the most classic scary commanders ever. She's still up there on the EDH Salt list, and similar to Jeleva, Narset casts stuff for free when she attacks. Except Narset digs every time she attacks, meaning you won't run out of cards to cast and need to flicker or recast your commander to get more. So if you fill your deck with extra combat effects, extra turn spells, and continually chain those into one another over and over again, you can in theory just win the game by taking a pseudo unlimited amount of turns or combats. Or can you? Like, yes, you could do that. But Narset is a 3/2. She does have First Strike and Hexproof, which is nice on a 6-drop. But if everyone has at least a 2/4 or bigger, she kind of just gets walled. So many players will either use fast mana to get her out early, or indestructible effects so she can attack without dying, and then often also need haste so Narset can attack early on without having to wait a turn cycle. But this leads to a lot of awkward games, where someone removes your haste enabler, forcing you to cast your commander without haste, and then if you get hit by a board wipe, next turn your commander costs 8, and if you used fast mana like rituals to get her out early, you might have to wait a few turns before you can actually recast your commander. And then your deck has a lot of these extra turns or extra combat effects in there that are, one, high mana cost, and also extra combat steps aren't very good if you don't have many creatures in the 99. And then you're stuck waiting to cast this 8 mana commander, and if it gets removed again, like, what do? I have no idea. Narset leads to these feast or famine games, where she either pops off and wins or loses in a spectacular fashion by casting almost nothing all game. And these days, as interaction has gotten better, there's more free spells, fast mana has been banned, and general power creep of commanders, I actually think Narset doesn't hold up. She's no longer CDH viable, so you can't really play her at CDH pods. And if you play in a casual pod, I think you're still going to be archenemy number 1, and more people have better interaction, so you're going to end up with more of those famine games rather than feast games. Of all the commanders I've talked about, I think Narset holds up the least. But do you agree with my assessment of these classic commanders? Do you think they're still too powerful for the average casual table? Personally, I think Urza, Yawgmoth, Winota are all significantly scarier than these, and I think you can still play these, especially like Jarad or Jeleva, at casual tables, and I think they're going to be really fun. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments below. Oh, also, I wanted to scroll through this thread from my patrons when I asked them to name strong commanders. I got some fun answers. Okay, first answer was Chulane, which was pretty fun. Like, I mean, come on, yeah, this card's nuts, right? Zamone was a pretty wild take. Is this card strong? I don't know. I haven't seen the commander yet. Yeah, Crom Timna Thrasios. Yep, right. Obviously, these are like some of the strongest. Yeva, kind of a banger answer. This is another classic commander, but I don't know if most people are going to think it's too strong. Tali, yeah. The Iron Man. I think Iron Man is pretty good. I actually think this card's really strong. I think if a Paradox Engine was unbanned, this card would be like nuts, right? Like it'd be super crazy. I think it's good. It's good without that though. Winota, of course, right? Winota, another classic. Korvold, yeah, duh. Right, this one's... I hate this card. So strong. Tivit, Teller of Secrets. Ooh. Yeah, okay. I feel like if Time Sieve didn't exist, this card would be kind of like a silly, goofy, fun, casual card. But because it goes infinite with one card, and this is in the command zone, it's like S tier, right? And it has Ward 3, which is so obnoxious. It's such a strange card. You kind of like... I think Snail talked about this, right? You lose all your like voting and like funny, goofy stuff because if you have this one card, your deck is like way scary all of a sudden. Balthor, I talked about this commander in an old video about classic commanders that are still good, and I do love this card. He's sweet. I got a lot of other suggestions from the patrons. If you want to like, you know, join in on these like discussions and have your suggestions show up in videos, check out the Patreon, link in the description.